All right, so we're back. If you watched not episode one, part one of episode 3. This is part 2, where I'm just telling you and really telling myself because, again, I'm the only one watching these videos at these points. Except for shout out to Annika. So if you're on here, love you, girl. Um, but this is for myself to just share where I am at today, July 9th, 2025. Happy birthday, Vitor. Love you. Yes. So, right now, what I am weighing is, do I try to make a life in the United States at this point in my life, or do I try to return to South America? And as it stands now, the communities that I really found myself feeling my heart drawn towards are the communities in Cali, Colombia. And still, I don't know. I mean, it's too soon right now to know if like Cachoeira is ever like a long-term possibility. I will just say like Salvador, Bahia, Brazil, the state of Bahia, Brazil. That is also just like still so much on my heart. And so I'm trying to do what the book told me of, let's weigh the consequences, okay? So the not so great consequences of being in the United States. I don't even want to say his name, but the human thing that is currently in the White House and is technically the leader of the country of the United States of America, that's also like just that human is it's that's another not good thing about the US. Financial stability. Like when I tell you I was paying $50 for my rent in Brazil, and here, like, if I would want to find a place to live for myself, like, it's just gonna, I know it's not gonna be less than like $2,000. Like, maybe I'll find something for $1,800. And I just, like, my heart does not feel okay spending more than $75 a month on living somewhere. So that's a very big price that I am not sure I'm able and willing to. I mean, obviously, if I had a job, then like I think I would be able to. But anyways, it's just money and financial stability, because I also put down like cold. It's cold in the United States. In some of the areas that I'm looking at, like particularly Chicago, it's just cold. And then just the way that I think about life and live my life, and just, I feel like I'm very countercultural to the vibes of the United States, which is all about like achieving, of just like always chasing the next thing. And I'm like, I actually just want to like swing in a hammock and dance salsa and sing songs. You know, and so I just feel like to some people that's not achievement. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. I've been in the achievement cycle, double Ivy League grad here. Like, I understand, and also like I'm tired, and I just want to be happy and follow joy. And I feel like me trying to do that in the United States, I constantly feel like I'm being judged, I'm not being understood, in a way that when I was in South America, it's like you don't live to work. In the United States, it's like you live to work. But in South America, you work to live. And so it's like, it's not all about like getting the next thing, getting the next job, getting the next promotion. There is like, I'm just trying to get a paycheck so like I can go with my love to the river and watch the sunset and then go dance samba. You know what I'm saying? Like, I miss those vibes. So those are the costliness of being in the United States. I ain't got that here. However, what I, as of June 17th, came to really have to wrestle with and reconcile and also acknowledge is that there is and are a lot of costs to living in South America that I never really explicitly named, because all of the positive things that I was gaining, like the positive costs, we're just so positive, right? Which, let me do that real quick. I felt like my quality of life was on another level. Like, my ability to have access to fresh fruit and vegetables, like my body, like my face, my skin was the healthiest it's ever been. My body has been the healthiest it's ever been. I felt like mental health, I was really just because I could like just breathe. And unfortunately, I do think that like mental health can be related to like financial status. And so being able to have like a financial level of stability and do all of these like wonderful life-giving things really just it felt unbeatable, you know? And just, yeah, like that, honestly, like that was the reason why I was like, I'm never leaving. That's it, really. Like, and that's a big thing, you know? So I didn't really count the costliness of, okay, well, being in South America, especially when I was in Brazil, tentando falar português, sabe? I was trying to communicate in my third language, okay? First is English, second, Espanol, tercera, Portuguese. So there was always like a language barrier and me not being able to fully express myself with ease. That then was tied into another costliness, which was just like cultural understanding. And this was something that, I mean, if you read my blog posts, I was dealing with this when I was like in my 2-year stint in Cali, Colombia. I was just like, I'm realizing that like I spent 3 decades of my life being formed by the culture of the United States. And not just, I mean, the United States, we are culturally different among all the regions. So like, you need to understand that like I was culturally informed for 17 years by being a black girl born and raised in the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to church in the Cornfields, okay? I was in the back of pickup trucks in Cornfields. We played games called, we put a couch in the back of a pickup truck and went to Walmart and took photos with the on the couch in Walmart. We was carrying the couch on the backs of our bags into Walmart and taking photos because that was what we was doing, a couch scavenger hunt. That was how I grew up. Do you see that culture? I don't know any of y'all who are watching this, but do you have that culture? Do you have the photo scavenger hunt couch culture? Were you raised by that? Probably not. And if you were, talk to me, because we could probably be friends, right? So I grew up like that. And then I shifted to New England, you know, and was in New England for like, what, 15 years? Did 4 years of undergrad, I guess 11 years, let me not get too carried away. 4 years in Providence, Rhode Island, and then 7 years in New Haven, Connecticut. And that shaped me growing up in like intellectual New Haven and New England and Providence, Rhode Island, right? Like, it's just different. It's different. I mean, literally, even within the United States of, right, I became formed by communities where it's the norm to introduce yourself using your pronouns. And also, it was the norm to introduce yourself also based off of, like, the land that you were on, right? Like, occupied land of, you know, the Narragansett, you know, in Ohio, right, in Cincinnati, it's like the Miami peoples. But you go to somewhere else, like let's say you go somewhere probably more in the south of the United States, people are going to be like, what do you mean she, her, hers? What do you mean, like, occupied land of the, you know? And so imagine that, but on like steroids in South America. Like, it just, the vibes were very difficult to feel fully understood. And I basically came to accept that. And I said, okay, well, I need to stop believing that, like, I will be able to, like, understand cultural context. And I also need to understand and accept that I will not be, like, understood from my cultural context. Like, we can all respect each other. However, just, like, a deep knowing is not possible. And that led to the last big costliness, which was thinking about romantic partners and building a life with someone and realizing, like, dang, like, all right, if I found someone here, we would definitely, you know, have some cultural struggles and also language barriers. And what I'm realizing now too as well is, like, misogyny exists everywhere. Violence against women everywhere, especially violence against Black women. It exists everywhere. The United States is not immune from that. And also, I'm just realizing, like, domestic violence, violence against women, misogyny has different flavors everywhere around the world. And the flavor of, like, machismo, of misogyny in South Central Latin America is something that is very strong, very prevalent. It's like, it's giving a cultural marker. And I didn't realize that. I'm realizing that it's important to count the costs. And so that's where I'm at right now, y'all. As it stands now, I think I'm starting to prioritize, because when I got back into the United States, I just felt so... I felt like I could breathe again. And I didn't realize, like, for any of y'all, if any of y'all who are watching this who are, like, doing the life abroad and you've been doing it for, like, anywhere from, like, 6 months to, like, 3 years to 6 years to, like, if you're still doing it, I think you will understand me when I say, like, your body is just, like, constantly can't fully relax, because, like, you're always having to, like, think through things in your mind, and, like, even if you've gotten fluency in the language, like, it's still not your native language, you know? And so there's just, like, I remember, like, meeting this girl in Cali, Colombia, and, like, she had studied abroad in Cuba and all this different type of stuff. And I remember, like, she was fluent in Spanish, but she always, like, when we were together, like, would want to speak English. And I'm like, why? Like, you're fluent. It seems like it's, like, natural for you. And she's like, no, honestly, like, I have to live my entire life in Spanish. And when there's one person that I can speak English with, it allows me to breathe. And, like, I just really appreciate having a break of not always having to speak in Spanish. And I remember at the time I didn't really understand it, because I'm like, girl, like, I'm struggling to speak Spanish. Like, I understand why I need a break, but, like, you're fluent. Like, you're just thinking in Spanish. You're thinking, breathing, living in Spanish. But I wasn't understanding, like, the reality of, like, it doesn't matter how fluent you are. If you grew up the majority of your life in another culture, in another language, there's a level of comfort and ease and relief and release you can have when you are in that language and in that cultural context. And I felt like in Cali, Colombia, we found each other and we were creating that sense of, like, cultural comfort within one another while being in a completely different culture. And so I'm just very much taking in the fact that, like, my body feels relaxed in a way it hasn't in the last 3 years of constantly trying to learn another language, opt into another culture, like, realizing like, my cultural context is not going to be understood, and sometimes, like, not even accepted or engaged with, because people just don't even know. And because, like, I think I do a pretty good job of, like, joining community and learning about other cultures, and I love that. And so I want to give what's the word I'm looking for, like, precedence to the culture that I'm in. So I'm not gonna be, like, forcing my, like, US Black girl in Cincinnati suburbs vibes, cornfield vibes to to Brazil or Colombia. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the vibe. However, it means like I'm always turning off parts of myself. I'm not able to access parts of myself. Other people are not able to access parts of myself that are like actually inherent to who I am. And so I'm like, hey, I'm noticing, I didn't realize that like my body was like in a little bit of like hyper vigilant mode. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but it was just in a mode of like performance, a mode of like trying. That's what it is. Like, it was in a mode of trying really hard every day, every moment, every interaction to opt into a community, a language, a culture, a place that is not what I'm familiar with and not what my body and my life and my mind and my heart was formed and shaped by. So this has been a lot longer of an episode than I imagined. However, I really wanted to speak this out loud for myself. And I will end by reading what I wrote in closing in my journal, which is, I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm choosing the U.S. because of the prices I'm not willing to pay any longer of what living abroad in South America has looked like for me right now. And guess what? It's okay to change. I can actually guarantee that there will be change. And who knows, by November, December of this year alone, 2025, I might no longer be willing to pay the costliness and the prices of what it means to be living in the United States. You know what I'm saying? But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And the last quote that I wrote from the book was, freedom isn't a matter of somehow wriggling free of the cost of your choice, but realizing that nothing stops you from doing anything at all, so long as you're willing to pay those costs. And so I pray, may we come to find that freedom doesn't stem from a sense of escaping the consequences of life, but instead we feel freedom when we accept the inevitable, when we recognize it's just Newton's laws of physics, that for every action there is a reaction. So let's stop fighting it, and perhaps in the surrender we can find the freedom to choose. And then I put, it's still really scary though. All right, I love y'all. Thanks for being on this journey with me, and sorry that I think this was perhaps another 20-minute episode. I mean, really like 30 minutes if you do part 1. So I love y'all. Okay, happy Wednesday.